Combos for Wedding Pros podcast. I'm your host, Aislinn, and today we have a very special guest episode. We have Craig Peterman, and I'm so excited for us to get to talk about client experience, referrals, all the fun stuff. I know that is going to be super helpful for any photographers or wedding professionals who are listening. Craig, say hi.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to get on this topic and talk to everybody that's listening. So,
I'm so excited to have you here as well. Can you tell our audience a little bit about how long you've been in the industry, who you serve, all those kind of fun things?
yeah, absolutely. My name is Craig Peterman, and I've been doing wedding photography and videography for about 10 years now. So, seen so many cultures and people and met so many awesome, amazing people from all the events I've done. So, yeah, just excited to be a part of this industry, and I've loved everything I've done so far. So.
I love that so much. So, as my audience know, but like you might not know this, I was in the wedding industry for 14 years and I moved my business 5 times during those 14 years. So, I got to experience so many different cultures, so many different cities, and so many different types of weddings. And I think one of the beautiful threads that we're going to be like touching on today is client experience and client referrals, because it doesn't really matter what city you're in. You need to have a good client experience and you need to have a good client referral strategy. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit more. So I would love to kind of hear, like, since you've been in it for 10 years, what is like one of the biggest pieces of advice for you around client experience?
Yeah, well, I have a few things that I would say about client experience and getting that as best as you can get. So, of course, it's going to start and begin with your client and building that trust and relationship with them. It's so important and so critical because you have to remember your client is really trusting you, just off face value. They don't really know you intimately and personally. I mean, they're putting a lot of money, investing a lot into you and your work. You really have to reciprocate that and give them a lot of trust and relationship on your end. And there's lots of steps that we can take to do that.
I love that you have a client experience that naturally leads into referrals. That was something that I was really excited to bring you on the podcast to talk about. Can you share some of the ways that you set up your process to lead to client referrals?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, of course, I think trust and relationship is going to be the biggest factor for building a great experience for your clients. And you have to remember that your clients, they don't know you intimately and personally. They're trusting you at face value for who you are and kind of buying into that factor. So, I think it's really important to give them that back and build the trust and relationship with them. And building a genuine relationship with them kind of starts from the first interaction, showing them empathy, listening to their vision, guiding them through the process so they feel supported throughout the entire thing. You have to also remember that your clients, they usually have never had a wedding before. They don't know what they're doing. So it's really important to give them a good trust and relationship on how to do this and how to bring it together as a whole. Another good thing to do would be clear communication at every step as well. I like to keep my clients updated about scheduling, when things are expected, deliverables, next steps. When they book with me, I usually will send them a roadmap. What are they going to expect from this point after booking? So this just kind of helps keep a clear communication with them and understand what am I going to expect after investing with you. So and another thing too is personal touches. I like to tailor my communication and give little surprises to each couple's personality, little gestures, and just things that can kind of help make it more personal for them in a way that suits me as well. So I think those are just great little things to do for your client, just to make it feel like a great experience for them and to know what to expect from you.
I love that. I'm curious, like how do you gather the information to make it like unique to each couple? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I usually will send a questionnaire to my couples, and it's a really in-depth questionnaire. It just kind of gives me information about who they are as people, how they met, how their love has grown, everything from, beginning to end. And that just gives me a really good sense of who they are. Another great way for me to kind of get that information too is through, and this is going to be industry specific, is through engagement photos with me. So that really helps me kind of get to know them quickly and intimately in person as well. So, but that questionnaire I think is going to be the big step. Sending that to your clients right away is really going to help on both sides. They're going to feel better about it, and so will you.
Yeah. One of the things I love that you said is that you give your clients a roadmap at the beginning. planning. This was something we did as well in our business when I was a wedding photographer. And one of my favorite ways to kind of set my clients up to know like what's next was not only like at the consultation doing the roadmap, but we also did like an image delivery schedule. So 2 weeks before their wedding day, we would send them an email and we'd say, you're going to see your sneak peeks on this day. You're going to see your full gallery on this day. And it really helped our clients to not have to like answer that question to their family members, like who were asking like, when are you going to see your photos? Like they'd be like, oh, well, here's the email. It says this date.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's so important to keep them informed about everything that's going to happen. It just makes them not have to be curious and wonder. And, you're all on the same page too. You get on the same page very quickly that way.
What are some things in a client experience that will keep clients from referring you?
Some things that'll stop clients from referring you or keep them from referring you is it's going to be number one is lack of clarity. So I think if your couples don't know what to expect or they're very confused, this confusion can lead to frustration and it's just not going to end well for both parties. So I think just making sure that you communicate with them and have an open line of communication is really going to help their experience. And that's going to just help both parties in this endeavor together. So just make sure you're clear and you're not having lack of clarity and there's confusion that builds up. Another thing too is poor response time. And God, I hear this all the time. Why people are frustrated with photographers or other vendors is lack of response time, and it is just it's inexcusable in this day and age. You have emails go to your phone. You're always on your devices. There's no reason not to reply to a customer or client immediately after they message you. I mean, sure, life comes up and it's hard to respond within 5 minutes sometimes, but it shouldn't take more than a day to do this. So just making sure that you're responding to your customers' emails, texts, or calls in a respectful amount of time so they know that you're still invested in what their wedding is and what their plans are. So another thing too is just a generic treatment. If you give your customers the same treatment that you give every single customer and it starts to feel like a machine in a sort of way, I think that's just really not going to make your client feel like it's personalized or it's something other than just a transaction to you. So I always try to make sure that with my clients, it's more than just a number. Like I actually do care about your wedding and I'm going to make sure that it's, you're in love with your photos and videos and you're really happy with your experience. So just being aware that positive word of mouth is really going to help you. And if you deliver that good experience, your customers are going to shout you out to everybody that they know. Yeah, those are just some points that I would definitely touch on if you're thinking about something like that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And as far as like response time, I hear this all the time in the industry too. And I think one of the biggest reasons why people have poor response time is email management. I just don't think that people understand how to inbox zero or like manage their email, or they're only checking their phone like and they're not like decluttering all the things that are inside of your email. Those things right there will help you have a better response time for your clients, and having office hours. That's a huge thing that we did in our business to like help clients understand. This kind of goes back to like clear communication, helping clients understand when we actually will respond, because sometimes I can't respond in 5 minutes. However, I will respond during office hours each day. So I think like thinking those things through will really set you up for more of a win for you and a win for your clients, which I think is a huge part of client experience.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's such a great point.
If someone is listening to this podcast episode and they have a pretty good client experience, but they want to take it to the next level, like they're excited to like go to that next step, what would you recommend they add into their process?
Yeah, so a few things that I would recommend is number one, trying something like a personalized milestone check-in. Maybe send a quick message before their engagement session, a handwritten note before the wedding day wishing them well, tips and tricks to check in and see how they're feeling before the wedding. One thing that I like to do is I'll send, of course, we mentioned this before, sending a roadmap when they first book, and then I'll send check-in emails periodically leading up to the date. And there's a really fine line with doing this. I mean, you want to keep in touch with them, but you don't want to be annoying at the same time. Trying to figure out that nice balance is really going to be critical for doing something like this. But yeah, little gestures and little check-ins here and there. One thing I like to do before the wedding, 2 days before, is just, hey, how you feeling? Do you want to go over anything bugging you at all? So these little things can really go a long way, and it's really not hard to set up like a little automation for this as well. So it's just really easy to do. But another great thing too is, of course, we also touch on this, is sharing sneak peeks. And this is going to be really for, photographers, videographers, but, every discipline in the wedding industry can send some sort of short little video clip or a little sneak peek, just a little media mention, so to speak, to your clients, and help them keep the excitement high from the wedding before and after. Also, another one too I like to do is a follow-up after the wedding. I don't like to just like deliver the photos and videos and just disappear. Yeah, I think it's really important to just say, hey, how did you like it? Are you having a great post-wedding life so far? It's a newly married life. How are you feeling? But yeah, just kind of checking in, seeing how they liked everything, their feedback. Another great thing too I usually do will be 1 year after their marriage, on the year exact date, I'll make a little post about them, congratulating them. But that's also something you have to be very careful too, because you don't know, like, hopefully they were still together when you made that post. So there's little things you have to think about when you do stuff like this, but those are some of my recommendations for doing it. So
I love that. And I do think that it kind of depends a little bit on like where you are in your career and like how established you are and like what like kind of like price range you're in, because there are some things that we do at like different times of our business. There are some things that like you might be working directly with planners and not working with the couples. So some of these check-ins and some of these like additional things might not make sense for where you are in your business. So also like be discerning with the like information that we're giving you here today and anything you like hear like on other podcasts. Does it apply to where you are in business, and making sure that that makes sense. I love that you talked about automations because this was a huge thing for us. And it's funny because our wedding photographer actually still sends us an automated email every single year on our anniversary. And we got married in 2017. It's been almost 10 years. So it's kind of fun to get that little email, and it's the exact same thing every single year. And it's just really sweet, like almost like a little check-in. And it reminds me of like how I felt on that day, but also how I felt about those vendors who were with us on our wedding day. So let's talk a little bit about automation because I think this is kind of a hot topic for a lot of people. So, automation versus doing everything manually every single time. What are ways that we can streamline while still making it personal? Because I think that's so important to the client experience, especially if we want referrals from our clients.
yeah, this is a great topic. So automation versus doing everything manually, it's going to be a very fine balance. You have to figure out what's working for each side. So I think one critical way to do this would be using your templates wisely. Having email templates for FAQ responses or pricing or initial inquiries, those can be really smart, but you have to add a personal touch to each of those emails. So if I have an inquiry from a new couple and they're interested in booking with me, like I have a template and an automated email, but I also personalize that email. So it's their names, their venue, their date. So it just doesn't feel like I'm just sending auto reply to these couples. So I think it's important to have almost everything ready, but just personalize it in that form. So another great way to do this would be is having your scheduling and payments automated. So using tools like Calendly, which I'm a big supporter of. I use Calendly for meetings all the time, and I have a link, and I'll send it to clients saying, "Hey, you want to book a consultation with me? You can just go to this link, and it's really easy. They can book a time that's convenient for them." Or just having an invoicing system. For me, I use HoneyBook, and that's great because it just sends them the payment reminders. They can automate their auto pay if they want. This just saves you and the client a lot of time and hassle in getting this done. So, and another great thing too would be kind of like segmenting your workflow, automating routine tasks like invoices, reminders, but just make sure you're intentional about your key touch points that are personalized, like congratulatory messages, session details, even review calls as well. So, those are just some things that I would personally recommend, and kind of helping keep that balance between both.
I love that. When I talk to my clients who are wedding photographers, or even wedding planners, like we kind of talk about what parts of it should be personalized and written out each time versus what parts of it can be streamlined. And one of the things that I tell most of my clients is it's okay for you to have an auto email that goes out to tell people that you got their email or that you got their inquiry. So one of the very first emails that we had set up that was a complete auto template was just basically like, hi, like we'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Like in the meantime, here's a link to our bride's publication or Martha Stewart publication, or here's our portfolio if you want to go look at it while you're waiting for us to like get back to you. And so that initial email was an auto template. Like I did not personalize that ever because it just went out immediately after they contacted us. But then the next email was my first inquiry email where of course, like Craig said, like you have like the personalized details, the date, like maybe like your minimum investment, those kinds of things went into that second email, but it was still like vast majority of that second email would have been a like template essentially, except for the more personalized things. So I think there's a lot of benefit to having automation, but then also making sure that like you go in and add personal things is going to be a huge reason why people are going to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're one of those people that when we talked about earlier, the poor response time, and you're like, that might be me, these automations might really help you in that aspect. So really look into that. If you're like, I can't respond right away, this is going to help you. So
Yeah. And I'll shamelessly plug. I have an educational shop and I have email templates. So if you guys are like, I don't want to write these, just go into the like educational shop. Like, Craig, I'd be really curious. Like, have you ever counted how many different emails you have like automated versus like the ones that you send personally to your clients?
yeah, I mean, I have like a pipeline flow of automated emails, and there's about five that are automated, but I usually will send like five or six little, they're actually from me and not just automated. So yeah, I think about five for me is what I'm doing for my pipeline. So
Yeah, it's really funny because we used to have a check-in email that would go out to our clients, and I don't remember exactly where it was in the workflow, but it was funny because our clients would respond back to this like check-in email that was completely automated, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, thanks for checking in. It was just like really nice to hear you. How's life? How's things?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I guess I sent you an email."
yeah, yeah, it happens all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. There was an automated email. I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah. And if you're like at the point in your business where you are starting to directly work with the wedding planner and maybe you aren't working with like directly with the couple, which, some people never get to that point in business. Some people don't want a business like that, and that's completely fine. You need to make sure that your automated emails are not bugging the planner if like they're the person who's like inside of Honeybook or your CRM or whatever. So like this is kind of where it gets into the territory of certain parts of your like career. You're going to get to a part where like it's not going to feel like you can automate, but I promise there are still things that you can automate, even if it doesn't look like what you were doing 3 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, emails are not the only automation that you can do. And if you're working with planners, you really have to be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as far as like client experience that leads to referrals, I'd love to hear like, do you have any anecdotes or stories where you had like a really great client experience with a client and then it directly led into other bookings that you had in the future?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, it's bolstered my business so much in the past few years. So, I mean, there's one wedding couple that I did, and the bride just loved me so much and how my experience with them was, and she loved every part of it. She referred me to five other couples that I ended up booking,
Wow.
which was I was just mind blown by that. She just loved me that much. She put me out there to that many people, and that's just the power of what a good client experience can do for you. You can really book a lot of people just on having a good experience. So you really have to take every interaction, every relationship, even with other vendors, you really have to take those very seriously, and make sure that you're doing a good job and having a great client experience, even with your couples and your vendors too, because it can just lead to a bigger business for you. So it's incredibly important to think about.
Yeah, and I'll kind of add on to that. It's not just the like vendors and the couple themselves, it's the guest experience. So
Yes.
I have an example of this where I did a wedding in 2019. It was a really big wedding. I think there was probably like 300 to 500 people at this wedding. It was huge. And I like one of the things that I used to do during the reception when people are starting to like mill about and they're like, just like having cocktails and like hanging out and stuff. I like go up and I have pictures of these people like in groups of 3 or 5 or whatever. And there was a lady there and I loved her dress. It was so pretty. And I said, I think your dress is so gorgeous. Who's the designer on it? And we got to chatting just a little bit here and there. So turns out 2 years later, this lady remembered me from this wedding reception. I had maybe a like 2 minute conversation with her. She remembered me from this wedding reception. When her daughter got engaged 2 years later, I was their first call because
Wow.
of a 2 minute conversation where I like was just basically asking about this dress that I thought was really cool. So I want you guys to also think about client experience extends beyond just the couple who's paying you. It extends beyond just the parents. It extends beyond just the other vendors and the team that you're working with. Sometimes it literally can be like, what is the nicest thing that I can do in this moment? I can give this person a genuine compliment. That can also be client experience. And also, like, don't do this if it doesn't feel genuine to you. This is like something that I love giving like words of affirmations to people. Like, it's a huge thing for me. So, like, if it's a gift that I have, I'm going to use it. So, this kind of like is a really cool thing to think about too, that like client experience that leads to referrals isn't just the people who are paying you, it's also the entire experience and all the people who are going to be there as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I used to not carry business cards with me when I went to weddings a long time ago. And I realized that was such a mistake because every single wedding I go to now, somebody asks me, "Hey, do you have a card? I really liked what you do." So you have to be aware, like all the guests are watching you too. If you're doing a great job and you're providing a great experience, they're going to see you doing that. And it's not like the wedding industry, with vendors, it's not like Walmart where you can just go down and get what you need. There's a really a big power in the wedding industry for the people and developing relationships. People remember, hey, I remember that photographer, I saw them working and I really liked what they did. So just being really cognizant of all that is really going to be important. So totally agree.
Yeah, I think like one of the things to touch on is like referrals and like asking for referrals and asking for reviews, because for us personally, like we didn't really have to ask our clients in a very like weird way. Like we kind of just like said it along the way, or they came to us through a referral. So it was kind of like almost like a part of the like culture of experience working with us, is that like, well, of course you're going to like probably refer us because that's how you found us. But I would love to hear like your take on reviews, to hear your take on asking clients for referrals, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, reviews are incredibly important. There's countless times, and more than I can remember, where somebody said, "I booked you because you were the best reviewed person in my area, and I trusted you off of that." Having those reviews is going to be really important, and asking your clients, "Hey, can you review me? It would really help me with other couples, so they know what a great experience that they could have and that you had." And how I usually do that is through an automation. A certain amount of time after the wedding, I'll send an email with some links, hey, review me if you get a chance. And yeah, that's just going to help kind of build your reviews and build the trust with everybody that's looking for you. So, and then asking couples for referrals. I don't really ask directly, like, hey, if you know anybody, can you refer me? But I try to hopefully give a great experience knowing that, hey, if they have a friend that's getting married, maybe they'll mention me. And it's usually worked that way for me pretty well. So, yeah, I don't know if I would recommend like directly asking for referrals, but maybe some soft way of asking it might work really well.
Yeah, I don't know that I would like, you haven't talked to these people in a year and just like coming up to them being like, "Hey, can you refer me, please?"
Yeah.
Definitely not the vibe. But one of the things that we loved to do was like we would think about like who are our top couples of this year, and we would either invite them like over for dinner, or we would like have dinner with them, and like naturally it would come up, like they would say like, "Oh, I referred you to this person," or like, "Oh, I was thinking about our wedding day, like our moms still talk about like, this thing that happened on wedding day." So like I didn't necessarily have to like directly ask for referrals, but it just kind of became like this natural part of like the experience itself.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, trying to weave that in, very softly is going to be really critical in getting referrals if you're trying to go that route. So,
I love that. When you think about, because you've been in the industry for 10 years now, when you think about like when you were kind of like, I don't know, like maybe first starting the first like 2 or 3 years, how has your client experience changed over time? Like as you've gotten like more like workflows, and as you've gotten like more into like your business and you figured out what works and what doesn't work, like what are some of the changes that you made over time?
I think being a lot more clear in my communication was a big help for me. Kind of when you're first starting out, you're like, should I do this? Should I do that? I don't want to seem annoying, but then you kind of figure out like a good balance where like, okay, this is a good, clear communication, a good expectation set, and it's not really annoying. And then also probably improving my response time, like everybody, we all have that to improve on, and just not giving like a general a treatment to customers, like really actually caring about their experience is really going to be important. Like if you actually care, and it's hard to do that in the beginning, like because you're like you have so many things to think about and you're trying to build your business, it's really hard to get into that like I really care and I really want to make sure everything's great for you. And that just developing that and how you do that and how you approach that with every couple is going to just take time to figure out. So for me, that was probably the big three things that I really worked on for me, and just kind of getting every couple's experience to be top notch, providing that luxury experience that we all want.
Yeah. So I started my business when I was 16 and I shot my first wedding at 17. So it's funny that you say like it's like you're like you have so many things to think about, because for me when I first started my business and I started shooting weddings, like I cared so much. I cared so much like because at 17, 18, like everything is like so kind of like it's new. It's so new. And so for me, like back then, I think about like I just wanted people to have a great experience. And the only way I knew how to do that, because my skills were still like, developing at that point, the only way I knew how to do that was to care really deeply
Yeah.
and to make sure people like were having a great experience. And I think if you can like pull that through your entire career, I think that's going to really set you apart, and it's going to lead to referrals because people are going to remember how you made them
Yeah,
feel.
I totally agree. And I really like when I look at photographers and luxury photographers that I look up to, like of course their work is great, but like to clients, like they're not really seeing like these huge differences that we would notice as photographers. They're noticing like the experience they get. That's what they notice. Like they know your photos are going to be great. Sets you apart is your experience. And I think that's really, really important to remember when you're dealing with couples and clients and vendors and guests and everybody. So
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, if you can tell people that you have a process and you know your process inside and out, you have great communication, you have an experience that, like, makes people feel like taken care of and seen and supported, that truly is going to lead to A, like you can charge more, but also B, you're going to have better clients. You're going to have clients who are looking for that. So that's one of the tips that I would give you guys if you're listening to this podcast episode is we talked a little bit about this, but like write out every single touch point that you have in your client experience. I want you to write out every single email that you send out. What are the automated ones? What are the like ones that you send that aren't automated? I also want you to write out what are the different touch points that you wish you could add into your client experience. What are things that like if you're maybe you've been married and so you got to experience the other side of it, what are things that you wish like your vendors had done for you? What are things that you have experienced on a wedding day where you're like, that's actually not how I want to run things. I want to run it this way. Let's add that into your experience now.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, just that's one thing for me. I since I've been married, that's one thing I touch on all the time with couples. Like I get that side of what you're about to do. So, and I think that's really important because not every photographer has that side. So if you touch on something unique like that, that's really going to just help you. So,
Yeah, we used to with our couples because we got married in 2017 and I had been doing weddings for a while at that point, but we used to like tell our clients like some of the things that we were doing for like our marriage to like make a stronger marriage, and being able to share that with our couples like really helped them to kind of like almost like feel more solid into like what they were walking into. They're like, "Oh, okay, that's another perspective that I can try on of like what we're about to do together."
yes, exactly. I can't agree more with that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's like kind of wrap this up. Are there any other like things that you think people need to know about client experience or referrals or reviews? Anything like that that you kind of want to put a bow on?
One thing that we could add into this is just personalizing everything that we talked about to who you are, what your niche is, what you do personally, and what you do well. So, like, this isn't a one size fits all type of approach. So, take something that I said or that Aislinn said and use it for your business, or don't take anything, but there's some things that can work for you and some things that might not. So it's really important to figure out what those things are, try to implement them, and then personalize it to who you are, because don't try to be like every other photographer, because it's really it's an art. So make sure that it's personal to you and how you approach things, and it's unique. Customers like a unique experience. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree. And like if you're seeing like, oh, but this photographer gives this gift and that I have to give this gift, I want you to really ask yourself, like, is that actually who I'm serving? Is that actually the type of clients that I love to work with? Is that actually the type of experience I want to give people? So really like kind of bringing it back home to like is this what I want to do with my business? Is this how I want to serve my clients? Is a really really great question to ask yourself.
yeah, agree. Yeah, don't be like everybody else. Don't try to copy us or copy someone else, or it's such an epidemic in the industry. It's just everybody's copying each other. So just make sure you do yourself and who you are. If you think something I said was stupid, then don't do it. Find something that you like and work that way. So
Yeah, I've had multiple conversations with my clients who are like, "Well, you do an image delivery schedule. I have to do that, right?" And I'm like, "Not unless you had my exact clients and like
yeah,
you want to like have that kind of process." But it worked well for me because I did my research about the type of clients I had, and I kept noticing some different things coming up and different conversations kept coming up over and over again. And I was like, "Well, I can solve this on my side and it helps them. So of course I'm going to do it." So that's another thing. If you have clients who are repeating similar things over and over again, either fears or stresses or anything like that, I want you to ask yourself on the vendor side, is there anything I can do to help my clients to alleviate this or make it so they never even have to have this problem?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point.
So, Craig, can you tell us how people can find you and how they can work with you?
Yeah. You can find me on my website, which is www.petermanphotovideo.com. You can also follow me on social media at Peterman Photo and Video. You can also email me anytime or fill out a contact form if you have any questions. But yeah, find me on my website and socials and follow me.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming on the podcast and talking about client experience and referrals. This was such a beautiful conversation that I know my audience is going to get a lot out of.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was such a pleasure to be on here.
All right, my friends, I will see you on the next episode. If you have any questions or anything came up for you, like please send us a message or send us an email. All right, bye.